my husband and partner Haas and two of our daughters, Mina and Nadia. And this is really a story about how you can protect your babies, but also protect other people's babies and yourselves. We are family owned and operated. We're made in the USA. As I said, we founded it in 1994, and at that time, it wasn't just altruistic. I wanted my daughter to have really cute clothes, and I thought once I understood the difference that organic cotton would make, like it was a no-brainer and everybody would understand that, and it would be a really famous line, and all babies would come into a better world because of organic cotton. We began considering every aspect of what touches a baby. For example, we were the first company to use nickel-free snaps, and most companies still use snaps with nickel in, and you might think, what does that matter? But most kids have a nickel allergy. So lots of times what we're looking at that people think is diaper rash is actually a nickel allergy, because of course the snaps happen around a baby's crotch. So toxicity happens and comes into your house in a lot of very innocent seeming ways that you might not think about. When we started branching out and having more success with green babies, we met people that were making sodas that had no high fructose corn syrup. And again, we didn't even know what that was. So we were really smart in certain ways, but we didn't understand that we were putting our families at risk in other ways. And the more people that we met that specifically understood what they were doing, the more that I tried to tell every mother that I knew and every expectant mom, hey, this is something you need to watch out for. Don't clean your toilets. Don't get a mani-pedi when you're pregnant. And I couldn't really talk fast enough. And as you guys can see, I like talking a lot. So I ended up writing that little book, Green Babies, Sage Moms. I think that came out about 6 years ago, and I was writing it for a year before that. And the book immediately became a bestseller. And this wasn't because of me, it was because I found all the experts in every different way. People were beginning to understand that something was going on with children, and that something was not so good. And that something was part of the environment, and it wasn't the same environment as when I grew up. So things were happening with children that were considered environmental. But the environment is a very intimate thing when it comes to a baby. The environment means things that are happening inside in utero when you're pregnant and inside of your house. So this was the first book to talk about bisphenol A to the degree that it was misspelled in the book. The scientists that I were talking to are people who we'd all consider noble heroes, but are far from household names. People that are spending all day, every day, trying to protect your kids from falling under the toxic body burden that's out there. About half of that book was actually about body care, because what I didn't understand when I was expecting is that outside is inside, and what you put on, you might as well be putting in. So people began to ask me all the time, what can I use, what can I use, what can I use? And at that time, there was really only one super clean line out there, which is Lynda, and it's a very powerfully wonderful line that we still strongly suggest. But it wasn't right for everybody. So we began to dream about launching our own baby body care line that was accessibly priced and that was really super clean. We were consulting with all kinds of chemists, and it took us about 3 years to develop the ideas for the formulations of what we wanted. And then last year in April, we launched the line. And what is in body care, sadly, as amazing as it may seem, the most trusted brands that call themselves family companies have chemicals that have never been tested for safety. Not a little bit tested, never tested in any way for safety. So there are 80,000 rogue chemicals that have been introduced into commonly used consumer products in the last 25 years in America. And most of those are what's called grandfathered in. If there's no proof that there's any toxicity to them, and in most cases there is not any proof, then they go in without any problem. The FDA does not oversee what goes into cosmetics. So it's one of the main ways to avoid things. The big elephant in the room is called phthalates, and you moms have probably heard of phthalates. Even 2 years ago, this was really an unknown word. Phthalate is pretty much any plasticky thing that you can smell, but it's also any expensive fragrances that you buy at any conventional retailers. Phthalates are endocrine disruptors that are feminizing boys and womanizing girls much earlier than normal. We now know, for example, that girls are reaching puberty 2 months earlier than they were 10 years ago. And in the scheme of things, that might seem like a very small amount of time, but it's not. If we look at that in terms of human development, 2 months is a huge leap. So something is happening environmentally that's changing this. We know phthalates are endocrine disruptors or have estrogenic activity. For the rest of us, they may be responsible for that 5 pounds that's real hard to get rid of. And we're surrounded by phthalates in a new car smell, in a vinyl curtain, in off-gassing from new things, but mostly we're paying for them in body care that smells what we think is good. And we take that into our body 2 ways, very directly into the bloodstream by putting it on, and also we breathe it in. And I'll just go one step further on this because fragrance is such a huge part of why we did our line. Fragrance-free from a conventional line is not any kind of an answer to safety, because fragrance-free means actually a masking fragrance or an anti-fragrance, but that is still made up of phthalates. So as much as people and pediatricians say, go for fragrance-free, and I have tremendous respect for pediatricians, this is the wrong thing to say, because fragrance-free, unless it's a truly natural and clean line, which you can find out from a safe retailer, really means you just have phthalates that you can't smell. So we have great, clean, beautiful, safe products that we've spent years vetting and that we have some of the biggest brands in the business doing, and there are other great products out there, so I'm not here to scare you. I do want to tell you, though, that it's one of the most important decisions that you can make for your children. The bubble bath, again, most important thing, safety first. Secondly, it really bubbles and it keeps its bubbles. This is very difficult without any sodium lauryl sulfates. Sodium lauryl sulfates have been demonized as being a dangerous chemical. I'm not a scientist. I'm not convinced sodium lauryl sulfate is a dangerous chemical. It's not carcinogenic, but it is very aggravating. And you know, about 30% of babies experience eczema at one time or another, and that eczema can be a continuing spiral that's really frustrating and itchy and painful for the baby, and is really, really sad for people that love the baby. In turn, that can turn into something where you're using steroids, and that is a serious cyclical problem where we're not letting the baby work through their own system. That's right, you know what I'm talking about. So we wanted to avoid any SLS and still have things really bubbly, and not be soap, because soap bubbles up. It's really safe, no SLS, but there's a terrible soapy film that dries out skin. So developing skin is beginning to regulate itself as they're changing their diets, as they're growing, and really body care does matter, because for your baby to be happy and comfortable and joyous in the bath is very different than having a baby that has irritated skin. There are very harsh preservatives in most products on the shelf. A lot of parabens have been removed because of that study that came out of the Lancet, where there were parabens found in every single part of breast cancer tumors in a fairly widespread study in the UK. But there are similar, very harsh preservatives that are in most conventional products that simply haven't shown up yet. But it's unlikely that something liquid and non-refrigerated should be able to be basically the same for several years. So any line that you buy, whether you choose ours or not, you really know that you can trust the manufacturer if they have a sell-by date on it. They're looking out for you because that has to come back to them when it's been expired. Okay, this one I'm really proud of because you guys saw my daughters, you can see what kind of hair they have. And it's a nightmare to get your toddler out of the bath, or before they're out of the bath, finish the shampoo, and they made it through without sobbing, and then you gotta put the detangler in, and rinse it out, and then try and get the big gloppy, oily parts out, and then try and comb it out. This is not a happy event. So this is, in my view, of all the fine products we make, the most innovative, because I don't know another spray-in leave-in conditioner that you can use after they're out of the tub that literally brushes through the thickest, most gnarled hair without cries. And I'm not the chemist that developed it, although we oversaw every single ingredient, so I can't tell you how we did this kind of magic, but there are no polymers, there's no silicones, it leaves hair smooth and shiny, and it gets through the tangles. I mean, it gets through the worst tangles of the longest and most clotted hair. It is good. I mean, my daughter Mina used it today. Mina, can you stand up and show your hair? No, she really did. As I said, we work closely with Mount Sinai. We believe very strongly with them. They take no outside corporate funding. They don't have a real slick marketing thing. And Dr. Landrigan is probably speaks in about as interesting a way as I do. But the core of what they're doing is very, very clean. Because what we've seen throughout the years is that when Harvard Medical School comes out with a study saying organic is better, 2 weeks later Harvard Medical School comes out with a different study that says no, it makes no difference. And we have seen this for almost 20 years. And the reason is because even the best places in the world take corporate funding in the form of grants from Dow Chemical, from Monsanto, from Bayer, from all of these places. And I'm sorry to tell you, because I'm sure that people work at those companies that love their children and care about their families, but it is business as usual for them. And it is their job to absolutely spin doctor anything that is coming out that's telling you the real deal. So when we look at Mount Sinai, they are the only research facility in America that researches children that does not take any corporate funding. So they are the ones that came out with these original studies on phthalates. They are the ones that came out with the original studies on BPA. All of these things that are so high in the news, they are the place to go look to for it. And then what happens is places, if there's enough consumer interest, like the Center for Disease Control, take up big studies. There's certain certain ingredients that you do want to avoid. Triclosan, any of the antibacterials, kills 99.9%. Well, firstly, what happens to the other 0.1%? Because it's not good when you kill 99.9%. That other 1% becomes a superbug. And triclosan is registered with the EPA as a pesticide. So you really don't want to be using that in the Listerine, in the toothpaste, in the underarm deodorant. This is craziness. People using Purell are putting a pesticide on their hands before they eat and cleaning their kids' hands with it. So soap and water has been proven to kill more of the bad germs and not make any superbugs. I don't want to tell you people with little kids, but cancer is the #1 disease killer of children in America, and that's not normal. Something is wrong with that. Something is going on that is non-genetic here, because genes don't change that fast. And if they did, we'd all be flying around the room right now. When I was growing up and I went to a public school of 300 kids, one kid had a peanut allergy, and he was like a movie star because he couldn't eat peanut butter. Now you can't walk into a classroom of 20 kids without finding 1 or 2. What's going on? It is not genetic. There are environmental things that are tipping this. Children exposed to high level of phthalates are more likely to show social impairments by 7 years of age, and this has been proven because of measuring the phthalates in a pregnant woman's urine. Here's the good news. If you've been using the bad stuff, phthalates pass through your system very, very quickly, within about 3 days. So stop using any synthetic fragrance, whether it's a lemon-scented garbage bag, or whether it's whatever you're using in your laundry detergent, or whether it's whatever you're using on yourself, just stop. And within 3 days, it'll go through your system. What I can tell you is they come out okay. So it's all okay. It's never going to be perfect. But the choices that you make from the products that you buy, the people that you talk to, the stuff that really matters to you as a person, I like this smell, I don't like that smell. You know, sometimes we're willing to cut ourselves a little bit short because we don't have time or we don't have money or we've been okay so far, even though it hasn't been exactly perfect. But we really don't want to do that with the next generation because they have the potential to go so much higher than we do. And it's an actual physical, measurable brain potential. They have the potential to attain this next level of understanding, of empathy, of technology, of humanity that I think that we're really close to right now. So that's why we do what we do. And as goofy as it sounds, that body care can make a huge, significant difference in the development of your baby and of you. That's really the truth. It's one of the sort of the last frontiers of understanding. But what you put on, you put in.